Out west a train runs through the night. Every 100 miles one comes into sight. Harvey House, Harvey Girls, meals and more are in store. Plus charm galore. Don't be sore, there's so much more.
Welcome back to the Harvey Girl Imposters game. This is part 2, where we will be back on a moving train. I'm desperate to find my friend Finn, but perhaps trouble has already found us.
First, a quick recap. Finn is missing, from a moving train no less, and Willa is determined to find him. She can't accept that he's been thrown off the train. Willa, somewhere west of polite civilization, still on a moving train, as noted, trying to find Finn. He's a tricky one. The comment came from a ruffian stationed outside the train's toilet room. His tone was as obnoxious as the stench clinging to the air. I hung back, but dared not dally long or fall victim to the vapors. The stink was not meant for prolonged consumption. However, I had to imagine that the two hulking men waiting outside the privy were just the type to believe they could overtake Finn Morgan. Foolish, of course, since Finn could easily dispatch one thug, and most likely both. He might appear a proper gentleman, but my Pinkerton man was rather diabolical in certain predicaments. I'd seen Finn handle himself quite well in a scuffle. By the looks of these men, they had not fought anyone today. No, not yet. Their crooked noses showed no blood, eyes no bulging redness, chins no growing bruises, nor knuckles injured. Their machinations had not strayed to violence thus far, but their prey appeared to be cornered in the privy. While eavesdropping was not a ladylike pursuit, it was a necessary skill for anyone seeking to uncover secrets. If only I could linger a bit longer and overhear the men plot a bit more, I might ascertain if Finn was within the lavatory or if they were just waiting for a turn. Alas, the rough men spotted me and moved aside so I could pass. Drat! Sadly, genteel ladies had their own water closet at the back of the train. Thus, I'd raise suspicion if I didn't hurry past. Even letting my attention take notice of the men might signal my intent, for I dearly wanted to know who was in the lavatory and if it was my Finn. Wait, my Finn? Indeed, at the moment he was mine, and I might be the only one able to protect him. Not that I'd ever tell Finn. Ladies kept such notions to themselves, lest they be done silly. Of course, silly might just be the thing to disarm the brutes and save Finn. I schooled my face into the most girlishly clueless expression that I could muster, as if the train walls would fall away at any moment and I'd be snatched by a gaggle of hawks, or whatever a grouping of hawks was called. I had not retained such knowledge, if it had ever been mine to acquire. "Dear me," I muttered, adding a little sigh of worry. The two rather large, rather swarthy, rather brawny men turned my way. I took a moment to settle my mind, then blinked a couple of times, as if just discovering the men blocking my way. They were all eyes and smirks, perhaps due to the slow progress I made in their direction. It was easy to affect a manner of unease, swaying with the train's movement. I allowed myself to bump into the hand railing, grasping for it to steady myself as I brought a laced-edge handkerchief to my lips. Only a dolt would miss the signs of motion sickness. Not that I could rely on the brutes to interpret the moods of a delicate lady. I let my eyes flutter, lest they were not familiar with polite society and the vapors. The men's thick brows eased, apparently sensing no threat. If anything, I was an oddity they wished would move on down the passageway. I, however, had other plans. Again, relying on the train's motion, I attempted to pass the men. At least, that must be what they assumed. I stepped toward the privy sliding door, making them shift away from it, closer to the side of the corridor lined with windows. 2 windows were open. I could imagine it was to ease the stench in the air. The breeze coming through, however, was warm. It did nothing to help the smell. I'd attest that it intensified the odor, practically smacking one's nose. The use of a handkerchief was even more necessary. Oh my! I muttered as the train crossed a rough spot jostling all of us. The men steadied themselves with hands bracing against both corridor walls, as any person without a hidden agenda would do. However, I fell against the privy door, dropped my handkerchief, and gasped. The roughnecks, who needed a moment to regain control of their balance, both eventually bent to retrieve my handkerchief. I could not have hoped for a better outcome and decided that a gentleman lurked in the most unlikely places, even within men paid to do harm. I only had seconds to make use of my ploy, but it would be enough. Turning toward the privy door latch, I produced my other tool, a hat pin. The sturdy 7-inch bit of brass had a polished dollop of amber at the end. I'd used it to secure many a hat for a stroll in the park. It also made for the perfect tool to wiggle the privy's simple lock open. With a heave that required all my weight thrown behind it, I slid the lavatory door open. Stepping inside, I did a half curtsy to the startled ruffians, snatched my handkerchief out of the nearest one's hand, pulled my skirts fully into the privy, and slid the door shut. The shock on their faces was priceless. I spun in the small space, imagining my expression mirrored the men's because Finn was not inside. The space was empty. My heart clenched. Had I just missed Finn? Drat my timing. If I'd come sooner, I'd have surely saved Finn from a desperate act as my eyes fell to the privy's disarray. The toilet bench had been bashed in, creating a gaping hole. Train tracks rushed by underneath. Gawking at the gap, flashes of light and dark beat past in a mesmerizing blur. I tapped a gloved finger to my lips. My thoughts raced faster than the exposed track. My next move would need to be fast, especially if Finn was somehow hanging on for dear life under the train. He would need a way back inside, and I would find it. Should I have stopped for a moment to consider whether Finn needed my help? Perhaps, but in my defense, I was having fun. Pounding sounded on the privy door as I stared at the thunderous train tracks rushing by, imagining Finn wiggling through the hole and somehow clutching the train's undercarriage to escape. The hole was ragged, broken bits of the bench hanging from the gap as if hammered by a boot. The opening was large enough for a man, large enough for my Pinkerton man, which begged the question, where would Finn take himself if he was able to crawl out of the privy like some horrible slug? With a wrinkle to my nose, I slid open the privy door again and faced the ruffians. I must say, gentlemen, stall your fervor, as I have never seen a more deplorable lavatory on an Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe train. I say we alert the conductor and ask for restitution. Standards must be maintained. Don't you agree? The men blinked at me. I waved my handkerchief and exited the stinky chamber, continuing down the corridor toward the front of the train. If Finn were to pop up somewhere, it had to be at a junction between the rail cars. Unfortunately, the ruffians quickly spied the toilet and the condition of the privy and put 2 and 2 together. While I would have assumed they'd come up with 5, they did not. Heavy footfalls echoed from behind. They were following me. "Miss," one of them called.
Please, may we have a word?
They most certainly could not, but I was hardly in a position to state as much as the train plunged into a tunnel. The sudden darkness gave me pause, but I quickly picked up my skirts and ran.
Well, dastardly men and dark tunnels aren't a good combination. You'll have to join us for part 3 to find out what happens.
Harvey girls, oh, Harvey girls.